In this episode, let's talk a little bit more about fat, why fat has been demonized, and why fat is not bad for you. Why fat will not make you fat, and why Papa Swolio's biceps are just so fucking huge. What makes them that bulbous and sublime?
The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the bacon is sizzling. Welcome to the Daily Swole.
Testicles. Welcome, everyone, to episode 633 of the Daily Mother Swole, the most muscular swolecast, beardcast, broadcast, gaincast, and pimpcast and slutcast in the realm, because when I flex, you flex, we all flex our biceps. We are large and in charge. Happy fucking Monday, everyone on Facebook and Instagram. Hello, bitches. Hello, busters, hustlers, and all you hoes that are watching Papa Swolio. We are ready to go balls deep today on a Monday. I hope you got your coffee. I do, Daddy. I got my coffee. What's up, fuckers? Hi. Anyone under the age of 8 watching? Hey, little fucker. Hey. Hi there. Don't let your kids watch the Daily Swole unless you don't mind F-bombs. But all are welcome. I don't mind helping a little 5-year-old make some sick fucking gains. I don't mind that. Oh, what's going on, team? Valentina, Chet, Gina, Cisco, Michael, everyone is showing up. Everyone's coming in through the virtual door. On the board behind me, what do I put on there? Ah, yes. I'll get out of the way a little bit. Fat does not make you fat. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that. Remember that today is going to be a little bit Rage Monday. So we're going to set up a couple things for the week. And we're going to talk about nutrition again some more. We're always talking about nutrition. Nutrition. We're going to talk a little bit more about nutrition. But today, especially, going to just kind of set up what's going on, what the theme is for the week, and what the flavor is. And we're going to start with fats. I want to touch upon that again, because a lot of the messages that I'm getting, a lot of the messages and a lot of the questions I'm getting about nutrition and how to fix diet and how to fix all these things. And so many of you are just eating these low-fat, disgustingly plain and unfulfilling diets, and you wonder why you're hungry. You wonder why you're not satisfied. You wonder why you're not seeing results. You wonder why you're holding on to body weight. And it's because you've been lied to your entire life. It's because of big food and big government. It's because of all those things. And this is not a conspiracy theory. This is actually proven fact. And it's in a lot of books and it's in a lot of reading material. And it's right in front of our faces. And the propaganda that has been spread out, throughout the past 100 years just about in this country on everything, not to mention the racism, the bias, just the cultural disparity between socioeconomic groups. There's always been scapegoats, right? World War II, the Jews were the scapegoats, the blacks were the scapegoats. Everyone gets blamed, right? There's always a group that gets blamed for whatever. It's always someone's fault. And that's the American way. Someone's got to be to blame, right? It's always someone's fucking fault. Who did it? It's not my fault. It's got to be someone's fault. Someone did something somewhere and they're to blame. Let's blame that person. So as long as you can push the blame off, you're fine. And a lot of what happened in the beginning of the 1900s is just that, is that heart disease was lingering and they were trying to figure out a link to heart disease. They're trying to figure out what was causing heart disease. So before we actually get a little bit further into it, thank you, everyone, for joining live on Facebook and Instagram. And, of course, you can catch all the episodes on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts on iTunes. So all of the episodes are available in podcast form. So make sure, because it's Monday, make sure you catch up on this weekend's episodes. I understand that you are probably shrillaxing and maybe not getting in your daily swole, but the daily swole happens whether or not you want to be a lazy fuck or not. We are here. We are here. I am here. I'm here whether you want to get shit done or not. And Swolenormous X members actually got an amazing new class last night, a brand new prop yoga flow class. I don't know how many of you watching are in X and have also tried the brand new class. It's a prop yoga class. It's with the yoga block, and it's nasty. It's nasty for release, and those things are great. Those yoga blocks are great when used properly, especially for fascial release and for realignment. So if you are in Swolenormous X, if you're a Swolenormous X member and you have not yet tried the block flow class, make sure you jump on that. It's a great class. Great class. So it is Monday. The podcast is lit. Brand new yoga class in Swolenormous X. And what else is good? All right, so let's get back to the discussion on fats a little bit more. So there had to be a scapegoat. There had to be a blame. And drop your questions below if you have any questions about nutrition, and we'll try to take a couple at the end of the show or something pops up. But there had to be some kind of a link, right? That's what science does. Science finds links, science finds trends, they find correlations, and then they do clinical trials. That's what happens. That's usually, there's an idea, there's a concept, it's called a hypothesis. It's the scientific method. And then a scientific test is designed to disprove that hypothesis. You try to disprove something. And if you do hundreds and hundreds of tests and you can't prove it wrong, then it invariably must be true, or at least true until proven otherwise. So you really have to prove something correct. It's not correct until disproven. It is supposed and it is proposed, and then it's tried to be proven and disproven. It pretty much, you'll have an idea, and then the scientific way is to attack it and try to show that it doesn't work that way. And that's how you prove something, whether it works or where it doesn't. And those of you that are following me on Instagram stories, which you should, if you're not following me on Instagram and you didn't check out my Instagram stories, when I go to the supermarket, I drop some knowledge nukes. And I was talking about all the hydrogenated oils and the soybean oils. And I want to clarify a couple things, because it's not always that the government and these industries are the enemy. And they didn't start that way per se. The big companies didn't necessarily start that way. There were this concept of this idea of good intentions or abiding by the law or abiding by science. The problem stemmed from even before that, when the improper elements in our diet were demonized and claimed to be incorrect. So then the food industry had to morph and start creating other methods of food production and other methods of creating the same flavors and the same tastes. So early in the 1900s, it was hard to do scientific tests, right? The technology wasn't there for all these high-end tests. And I don't know how much you know about scientific studies, but they're extremely expensive. Clinical trials are extremely expensive. And when it comes to nutrition clinical trials, it's exorbitantly, almost in many cases, prohibitively expensive, because you have to not only create the food, but you have to closely monitor people's eating habits. And you can't do a scientific study, you can't do a clinical trial with 10 fucking people. You need hundreds and ideally thousands and thousands of people to get proper statistics and sample sizes, and the more the better. And when you have a country of 400 million people, or even back then 200, 300 million people, you need a significant sample size in order to make general recommendations for an overall diet. So there's always been disease, but strangely enough, there's very low incidence of heart disease when saturated fats and animal fats and lard were used primarily. There's a very low incidence of heart disease. And there were a couple links that were found, And I said links, meaning it's correlation, not causation. I did a workshop in this in Swolenormous X last week, explaining how things that might have a correlation doesn't mean that A is causing B. It's a massive difference. It's a massive difference, especially when we talk about nutrition. It's very easy to arbitrarily say that people that drive white cars have been shown to have higher blood pressure. Like if you look at enough data, right? Like let's say you collect 100,000 people and you get all the colors of all the cars that all those people own, you get the statistics of who has high blood pressure, who doesn't, and all these different things. You're going to find certain things that are high that create some kind of general pattern. Do you see what I'm saying? Like maybe everyone that wears sandals just happens to have higher blood pressure. Does that mean that wearing sandals causes high blood pressure? Does that mean that if you choose to wear fucking sandals, and especially those fucking thong sandals, those rubber ones with a little nub on the bottom, how does it stay in there? No one knows. Does that mean if you wear thong sandals that you're going to have high blood pressure? It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. If you get enough data, you get enough information, it's going to seem like, oh, well, those things are both high, so they must be, related. That's called a correlation. But with any kind of testing, you would find that wearing sandals has fucking dick shit to do with actually having high blood pressure. So what occurred were these correlations were found between fats and I think it was like total cholesterol or heart disease. But in short, because I'm not going to get into all the details now, we'll break this down. We'll go into some specific aspects of this. And I'll give you all some references and some other things you can read up on through this week. We'll do a lot on this because a lot of content and to go into each thing. But I want to give the general overview. I want to kind of introduce this whole trend, from then till now, just to give the idea and have a little discussion and get your taste buds wet, right? So when pretty much the scapegoat was chosen, that saturated fats were the enemy. Saturated fats were the enemy. It was bad. Not to mention, there were articles written about the meatpacking industry. If you remember from high school, you might have read The Jungle, Upton Sinclair. It's pretty much the documentaries that are done today on film. It was an expose about how dirty the conditions were in the meatpacking industry. And yeah, I mean, all work conditions were terrible. There were sweatshops everywhere and people were walking through blood and it was gross. So meat consumption dropped dramatically. And we have those things today. You see a documentary and all of a sudden, I'm a vegetarian, and you abandon all these different things. But pretty much what happened was meat and fat from animal protein specifically, and then later on, more specifically, saturated fat was deemed the enemy because, for example, it raised total cholesterol, which we know now that total cholesterol is not the defining factor for heart disease and heart risk. Okay. So a lot of these things are just fucking completely false, completely unfounded. There's no causation. There were just generalities and correlations that were pretty much jammed down the country's throat by people that just pushed it through the system and got policies actually implemented. So these policies got implemented inappropriately based on correlations that weren't correct, that were never tested. Because clinical trials need a lot of money. They need a lot of control. And there's so many, like people, if you say, okay, eat these foods, here's a shopping list, go eat these foods mostly for 2 years. People can fall off those things. These trials aren't long enough. 2 years might not be long enough to see some of the effects of these diets when you're testing. People might fall off or not be really eating the foods they're supposed to be eating. Some people might have existing diseases already. And how do you judge for all those things? That's a lot of testing. It's a lot of blood work. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of resources. And it depends on who's in power that wants these things done. So I'm going to talk more about who's funding these studies and what studies actually mean, because that is an entire scam in itself, which is why we have to use a lot more common sense, which is why we have to use a lot more common sense as a people, Because just because there's a scientific study doesn't mean it's not funded, it's not biased, doesn't mean there's not another study that contradicts it. And just because you have a lot of studies, a lot of times when someone's trying to defend a point, they make more studies, they produce more articles to sound louder. It's like YouTube, it's Facebook, it's everything. The louder you shout, the more right you are, right? So a lot of these studies or these papers or these ancillary documents were just pumped out, pumped out, pumped out, pumped out because volume will just drown out the noise from all the evidence that shows the opposite was true. So fat was demonized early in the 1900s, and soybean oil and vegetable oil sprouted. So Crisco and was it Mazola and these corn oils and these vegetable oils shot through the roof. Like the companies were created, all these things were absolutely just the industry thrived. So all these polyunsaturated oils, these vegetable oils, the crap. This is the stuff that's really bad for the body. Okay, so everyone should lower their fat content. People should not be eating as much fat. Low-fat diet is the way to go. Low-fat diet will reduce heart disease. And you should not have saturated fat. So we're all looking on the back of nutrition facts. Oh, no saturated fat. Keep the fat calories low. Keep the fat low. Have a heart-healthy diet, right? Cereals have these labels. Breads have these labels. Rice and all these vegetables and plant starches have these labels. And heart disease and cancers and all these other mortality rates are getting worse because of this influx of vegetable oil and plant-based foods when human beings are meant to consume animal fats. And animal fats showed no effect towards heart disease, showed increase in HDL cholesterol, which is more of a factor of heart health rather than having high LDL cholesterol. So if you have high HDL, which is the healthier type of cholesterol, you want that to go up more. Increasing or decreasing LDL is not as much of a factor of good heart health is the increase of HDL. So an increase in HDL is more important. Rockin' Mama, meat is the cause of cancers and illness nowadays. Not necessarily true. That's the illusion. That's the illusion. That's the issue. So you'll be interested in a lot of these shows this week because it's going to expose a lot of things and why that's not true and why that's just what you've been programmed to believe ever since you were born. This is ever since we were born, people. This started back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. We were all not even born yet or just being born. So we were indoctrinated into this way of thinking since we were born. And mostly it's the lean meats because animal fat is not bad for you. I mean, we're talking grass-fed, healthy. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of problems with the industry for sure. There's a lot of problems with the industry. The way they let these there's E. coli, there's a lot of issues, but there's also a lot of people and mass production. There's a lot of problems. There's other problems too. But in essence, like as human beings, one of the biggest disparities and the biggest misconceptions is that the ancient way of humans to eat and the way we're naturally eating, we think of natural as green, right? Natural as green as woods. Human beings, we didn't get here by eating lettuce and salads. We didn't get here by eating vegetables. Vegetables is a classic sign of being poor and not having abundance and not being healthy. There's reasons why tribes and Eskimos live off blubber and organ meats and fat and protein and don't need any vegetables and are completely healthy because it's not required by humans. People make the argument that, our teeth are different. Our teeth aren't designed to eat raw meat. No, they're not. We don't eat raw meat. We cook our fucking meat. So we don't need massive fucking, teeth like a lion or a tiger because we cook. There's a reason. It's called evolution. And all these things play into this bigger picture, this bigger symphony of how we are manipulated. We're manipulated. It's marketing. My point is that the low-fat craze was marketing. It was literally marketing. There were ads. Just go on Google and look up old advertisements. Look up old advertisements for, propaganda Think about camels. Think about the cigarettes, right? You used to see ads that said 4 out of 5 doctors recommend camels. Doctors recommending cigarettes. These are advertisements. And people believe these things. They saw these things and believed them. So everything that you heard from the government was told to you based on studies that showed correlations but not causation. They didn't do the studies. That's the thing. Fat was demonized before the studies were done, and they were never done. And every time they have been done since then, or remotely close to being done, they find that it wasn't true to begin with. So they brush it under the rug. Like, this is just barely starting to get to the surface now. How many of you like coconut oil? We'll talk about that more this week. How many of you like coconut oil? We think coconut oil is healthy, right? Coconut oil is mostly saturated fat. They banished and pretty much eliminated palm and coconut oil from all food production. It was called like the oil wars, where they literally put so many taxes and tariffs, they pretty much almost made it illegal to use coconut oil in foods. So what did these big companies have to do? They had to figure out other ways to make oils. They couldn't use animal fats because they were demonized. And, oh, it's not good for the heart. So what they have to do? Make vegetable oils and soybean oil, and then hydrogenated oils and trans fats went through the fucking roof, and they're still a problem today. So now we're kind of just getting through the trans fats, but then now you still have that indoctrinated base belief that fat is bad for the body. So you still have the government machine that's saying low fat diet from 100 fucking years ago with no research to properly support it. And now you also have no vegetable, no these trans fats. So now companies are really starting to scratch at, that's why there's so many ingredients in foods, because now they have to find something else to add, because a food is trying to make a food, these food companies are trying to make the same food, let's say Oreos, which is already junk, but they're trying to make the same taste, the same consistency, and the same products they've always made that they used to make with tallow and animal fat. And then they had to use vegetable oil, and then they started using trans fats, because you can make trans fats hard, you can make margarine, you can make all these different consistencies for icings, for cookies, for textures, but then those are banned and those are looked down upon because now you have to list trans fat on nutritional labels. So now they're using other things that aren't even tested. They're using other types of oils like interesterification and shit that you don't even fucking know about. You don't know about it because they don't put it on the nutrition label. So until this big lurching machine actually starts letting you all know, and if you don't Google this stuff and you don't read fucking books and you don't look into it, it's so bad. This artificial replacement for fat in our diet is unnecessary. We have the fat. It's animal fat. It's lard. It's the shit that we've been using for fucking thousands of years that we've absolutely eliminated. And all these things, like all these diets and all these fads, high fat and animal meat and stuff, this is what human beings have consumed for thousands of years. There is also a strong correlation with, we said, heart disease and the increase of meat. Well, actually, beef decreased in consumption. And what increased with that increase in heart disease is chicken. And I've been saying for a long time that chicken is a lower quality meat. All this chicken that people are consuming, all this lean meat that people are consuming is causing a lot of these problems as well. So it's the lean meat, and people and societies used to give the lean meats to their dogs. You know, if you made a hunt and you killed, you would keep the organs, you would keep the fattier cuts, and you would give the lean meat to the dogs. We eat lean meat as if it's like, oh, you know, we're allergic to fat. A lot of problems come from lean meat. That's why I usually don't consume chicken. I rarely consume chicken. So think about why fattier cuts of meat are more expensive, because they're better for you and they're tastier for a reason. Why does something taste good? Because it signals to our brain that this is good for us. That's why they also manipulate foods to taste certain ways to hit taste buds, but that's artificial. But for real wholesome food, think about what you crave. And I mentioned this the other day. You don't go to a forest and look at the trees. And when do you ever go to look, I'm not saying that salad is the devil. I'm not saying that vegetables are bad. All right? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you can't be a vegetarian. I don't care what you do. I'm just like using a lot of common sense and giving you some additional education about how this entire country in the last 100 years works. Don't forget, it's like the internet is 20 years old. So a lot of information is coming out because we have the ease of distributing it that can't get pushed under the rug like it could in the 1960s. In the 1960s, if you weren't a doctor and you weren't in like the big machine, the government, all the big government doctors, and they weren't like hammering low fat down your throat, you just got on board. You just got on board, right? You wouldn't fight the machine. It's like David and Goliath. You wouldn't go against people that were funding your research, people that were paying you grants, people that were giving you money. You would just say, okay, you go to these conferences and they would be telling you all these different things. You're like, okay, all right, that must be true. Okay. All right, low fat. Yeah, low fat. So those things are part of the advertising. It's part of the advertising. It's part of the marketing of the government and marketing of the country. So where was I? So the lean meats have gone up. Everything's low fat. And when this happened, the meat industry, the eggs and the dairy industry, they weren't happy about it. They were upset and they were freaking out. And rightfully so, because they were being demonized for providing and contributing to heart disease and all these things. And it wasn't proven. It wasn't proven. It was just a correlation. And as it turns out, that it's just not true. It's just not true. Even Atkins, even Dr. Atkins, who founded the Atkins diet, which is a high-fat, pretty much ketosis style of way of eating, he was looked at as, he was a loudmouth guy, but he was looked at as a quack, kind of just like some dude, because he wasn't a researcher, he was a doctor, but he showed all these amazing results. And now, obviously, high-fat and keto, it's so popular. It's so popular. But we're talking high-fat from animal sources, from quality animal sources, the way humans are supposed to consume. Just fat's not bad for you. Fat does not make you fat. One of the problems with consuming a low-fat diet is the imbalance, and we'll just call it the fuck up of the hormones in your system. So in order to utilize energy, your body uses different hormones to release sugar, to release energy into the bloodstream. And there's certain hormones that are important for that. Insulin, bringing sugar into the cells and shuttling things around. When your body has too many carbohydrates, because if you go low fat, what do you have? If you go low fat, you go high carb. If you go low fat and you go high carb, which is the way society has been telling you to eat for the last 50, 60, 70 years, is to go low fat. So if you're doing that, if you go high carb, you're on this roller coaster, on this insulin roller coaster where you're always getting a rush of sugar and then you're crashing and you're up and you're down. And we have that afternoon crash. We have diabetes. We have all these issues from sugar, from carbohydrates. A lot of these diseases that never fucking existed in the United States, that never existed in all these places around the world, that never existed, are coming now because all the companies, fast food companies, all these companies switched from using animal fats to vegetable oils, to these polyunsaturated fats. And a lot of these polyunsaturated fats and these vegetable oils actually oxidize and create almost like spackle, like spray paint inside the arteries. And a lot of companies, those of you that work in the food industry, if anyone works in fast food or restaurants or where you're using a lot of vegetable oil in the fryers and stuff like that, they oxidize, which means they smoke and they give off like this sticky fucking film that literally gets stuck in your fucking lungs and in your heart and your arteries and gets stuck to the walls, and you need chemicals to scrape it off. Like, it's bad. And that gets really into the chemistry of it, the double bonds and the hydrogenation and or the unsaturation or the saturation of the fats and the actual molecules. But pretty much if there's extra electrons, these double bonds, if they're unsaturated and they're polyunsaturated, you just have chains of molecules that can react more. And when they react more and they oxidize more from a chemical standpoint, they create all these other elements and all these other types of fats and different arrangements of molecules that when you say cis and trans, that's just transsexual, an organic chemistry term that means like the rotation. And I forget from my organic chemistry class, honestly, but it's like if the hydrogens are on the same side or on opposite sides and blah, 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 you have different types of molecules, but you have all these other molecules that are created that we don't even know about. So we might ban trans fats and certain types of fats, but we don't know about all these other associated fats that are being created by these processes in which we're just creating other things that might be legally allowed in the food industry because we have to list trans fats. So let's make some other kinds of fats. So pretty much we keep on making a law and then trying to create something else and add other ingredients. So when you don't have animal fat, you can't create. So, all right, so if you have animal fat in your food as part of your product, and then you try to take away animal fat, but keep your product tasting the same, the consistency the same, what do you have to add? So you add vegetable oil, but vegetable oil, let's say, isn't solid at room temperature. So how do you make it solid? Okay, so you hydrogenate it. You make it like a trans fat, and you make it like a consistency that you want, like margarine. Okay, you have that, but then you have to add these other things in there to add for the texture that is lost with the fat. So you start adding more ingredients to replace one ingredient. And then once those things are banned, trans fats are bad. Oh, okay. So then we're just creating, and now you have these lists of ingredients on the back of your boxes where you have 50 fucking things written because the companies are trying to keep the same flavor and texture and everything that they've built their entire business on. Like Oreo needs to taste like Oreos no matter what. So if all these other oils are banned, who knows what the fuck you're going to see in your food to make Oreo taste and feel the same way. Because if Oreo changes its flavor and all of a sudden Oreos don't taste like Oreos anymore, people aren't going to buy it. They're going to lose billions of dollars. So now it's like a race to use chemistry and fucking pseudoscience and just like Frankenstein in order to create these foods that taste similar to the original, which was just using animal fat. So yeah, this I actually went off. I mean, this is the whole concept I wanted to talk about. I went off on a couple different tangents, but I just wanted to give the idea and set the stage because other episodes this week, I want to get into some specifics and break into the science a little bit more, get a little bit more detailed and granular. But I need to talk about the concept over the course of time. When we are told to do things and we're kids, right? The problem with policy, the problem with government, and the problem with these ideas and these studies or lack thereof, basically these were correlations that were not tested. And it's something that you should be pissed off about. It's very, very frustrating, and it's sad because a lot of our loved ones, people that we know, have diabetes or had heart disease or died or on medications for cholesterol when most likely didn't have to be that way. We could have been a lot healthier. So if you're looking at, oh, well, meat is bad and meat is the enemy and blah, 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 prove it. Prove that meat is bad. Prove that meat is the enemy. We eliminated meat for the most part. We eliminated full fat foods, everything skim or 2%. We got rid of fatty meats. We minimized meat consumption. We increased carbohydrates. We increased all these other vegetables and all these other things. Eat these more. Of course, a lot of refined in there too. And health has gone completely fucking apeshit. Metabolic syndrome has gone through the roof. So obesity is higher than ever. We have heart disease is high. Cancer is high. Why do you think we have all these things? Stand up to cancer, heart disease, this, breast cancer. Everything's got a fucking month because there's so much of it. So many people can connect. Why do we have a breast cancer awareness month? That's fucked up, right? That's fucked up to have breast cancer aware. There's so many women that are suffering from breast cancer and dealing with this shit that we need a fucking month to have parades and stuff. Like, we should not be having this kind of massive disease and all this massive problems because of what we're forcing ourselves into. And here's the thing, right? Okay, so Rockin' Mama, here's one of these illusions. When my husband went on a vegan diet, his cholesterol dropped back down from a dangerously high, quote, to normal in 3 weeks. Right, but that's not necessarily a correlation. What did it lower? It could probably lowered everything. It probably lowered HDL too. It probably lowered the HDL cholesterol, and it probably lowered the LDL A little bit. Now, the high point, that what's interesting is that it says a dangerously high to dangerously low. Do you know how that number, the 200, whatever they're using now, was set? It was just, there was no scientific, like the science behind how these numbers and how they decided what was too high will embarrass you. You're going to be embarrassed to be a fucking human being when you look into that. How they decide that 200 was the number or 300. Total cholesterol is not the determining factor for heart disease. That is one of the scams. That's one of the scams. That's one of the misnomers. That because you have high cholesterol doesn't mean you're going to have a heart attack. Is your HDL high? If your HDL is higher, that's a good thing. You could have a high total cholesterol, but if your HDL is really high, that's a good thing. So lowering HDL or LDL is not as important as raising HDL. So there's a lot of numbers that are thrown around. It's the same concept. It's the same concept. Now, I'm not a doctor, so don't go and but I'm telling you, who trained your doctors? Who trained your doctors? Your doctors were taught in medical schools that were told that this is the way, low fat, avoid saturated fats. These are bad. Who told them? People in government. These people in power, the food companies, all these tests and all these studies that were done by food industry that were picked and handpicked and manipulated and portrayed to make this as true as possible. Data was ignored. Certain studies were ignored. Some studies didn't make it into an article or a journal. Some studies, only certain parts and certain data sets were used to support these theories because once they got the big machine moving, they had to do studies that supported these facts or these supposed facts. This is where we are misled. And I had this even myself. It's hard to imagine that fat isn't bad because we're so used to avoiding fat. It's hard to imagine that cholesterol doesn't fucking matter. Total cholesterol doesn't matter. It's not a factor. We just oh my God, cholesterol? We're so used to looking at cholesterol. Dietary cholesterol does not mean cholesterol is a necessary hormone in the body. It's the same fucking demonization of sodium. We need these things in the body. These are functions. These are things that we use. And it's sad because the entire health of the United States has been absolutely fucked in the ass by people that had to be right, that people that had to know something and had to defend a point and defend an argument. So what we're seeing now, and don't be naive. Don't be naive. Don't be naive and think that this is a joke. You'd severely underestimate the power of just what you learn. How many of you are extremely religious? I'll use this for an example. To this day, because you were taught a certain way when you were 2 or 3, your parents raised you to believe in certain things, whether you're Catholic or Jewish or Christian or whatever you believe in, you were raised that way. You were raised that way. You were taught certain things and you believed them because you were taught them when you were little. You believed in Santa Claus, you believed in Jesus, you believe in the Easter Bunny, you believe shit. You believe shit that you're taught when you're younger. You believe things you learn in school. Your teacher's right. You have to learn things a certain way. You got this question wrong on a test. You were wrong. Stay away from stay away from fats. Fats are bad. Stay away from, saturated fats. Saturated fats will give you heart disease. Eat this. It's whole grains, whole grain goodness. Got milk. It's a great source of calcium. All these different things that we are taught and that are ingrained. And that's a human fact. That's a fact. And that's where cultures, and that's where everyone has a team. Everyone has a team. Everyone has a community. So that's not up for debate. That's just literally how we're raised and how we're taught and how we're ingrained is usually how things stay. But it can be very dangerous for people. It can get very out of control. And this is one instance where it did get out of control. And we're just starting now to see the proof, because literally, if you want to know whether or not fats are bad for you, all you have to do is look at the facts, because essentially the human population in the United States has been a test subject. This has been a massive epidemiological study that was done on a massive scale. Policies were put into place, and we see what happens when we remove animal fat. Are we good? Are we healthy? Is everything organized? Is everything okay, fam? We're good? We're all healthy in this country? We get rid of animal fat. We add vegetable oils and all these plant sources and polyunsaturated fats, blah, blah, blah. How we doing? How we doing, team people? How we doing? We're dying. We're dying. We're fucked up. And there are other instances too. There are other things that we need to do more of. Exercise has to improve. General health, stress. Of course, there's pollution. There's a lot of other factors that, environmental factors that result in issues. We have more medicine, but that's why the pharmaceutical companies and the food companies got so powerful, because the foods that we were putting out was making people sick. So then you had to have companies that come out with cholesterol medications to lower cholesterol, and boom. So why do you think cholesterol lowering medication got so popular? Because they couldn't figure out a way to give medication to raise good cholesterol. They figured out a way that they can lower LDL cholesterol a little bit. So they got behind that, and then cholesterol medication went nuts. Lowering LDL was the answer. The only reason they fucking did that is because they couldn't figure out a medication that would raise the good cholesterol. But they could lower that one. So let's do that. But that's not the major marker for determining whether or not you're going to have heart disease or you're at greater risk. It's better to have a higher HDL than worry about lowering LDL a little bit. You want more HDL. So because the companies couldn't fucking create a medication that would raise HDL, they stuck with the one that would lower LDL a little bit. And then all of a sudden the pharmaceutical companies exploded. So, well, I wasn't raised Wiccan, whatever. Okay. You can make choices. What does that mean for anything? You can make any choice you want. Yeah, you get my point. You can make any choice you want. That's the beauty of this. That's why I'm having this conversation. That's why we're finishing up this podcast right now. I've said enough today. But you see how everyone's going to get a little testy? Everyone's going to get a little testy. Everyone's going to get a little bit upset, which is fine. You can get upset. You can get angry. You can be like, oh, that's fucking bullshit. That's fine. The truth wins no matter what. The truth will win in the end. It's just taking 100 years. It's taken a long time. But we're seeing the effect of the truth, essentially, because this has been a large, quote unquote, unofficial study. It has been kind of a study because we've been eating these foods based on shoddy evidence and really a lack of evidence. So we're not eating animal fats because of a lack of evidence. Everything got behind, and all the media and the marketing was all anti-fat. So boom, for 60 fucking years, it's been low fat, low fat, low fat, and we're dying. The proof is that we're fucking dying. Oh, well, you can't prove that. Yes. Vegetables and eating plants and eating fucking soybeans and beans and rice only in a diet is not how human beings used to eat. That's not a cleaner way of eating, fam. That's not an evolutionary way of eating. We never sustained ourselves on fucking vegetables and plants and veganism. It's just literally an evolutionary fact. We're not here today as human beings because we are eating plant-based. We're here because we survived and we grew and our brains grew and our height grew because we're eating tons of animal fats, tons of dairy and whole eggs, and that's it. And that's literally how we were eating. That's how every country, that's how humans survive. That's how humans survive. And anytime you show graphs of higher plant-based and lower heart attacks, a lot of times are higher in cancers and strokes and other mortality factors. But if you're not looking at the right graphs, you don't see that, so our ideas get skewed. There's a lot to be said for growing soybeans and artificial, and there's a lot of money out there. Don't underestimate how much money is out there. Let's take some questions, okay? Just realize that these nutritional studies and these clinical trials and the things that they need, the things that people need from science to prove that when you raise this, this is bad. Changing A changes B, fact. Those are extremely expensive. It takes a ton of time. And because it takes so much fucking money and so much time and so many people's pockets are at risk, they don't happen. How many companies are going to put $500 million behind a study that could put them out of fucking business or force them to change all their things? A lot of these big food companies just don't do anything until a law is passed. They'll keep on putting trans fats and shit into food until there's a bill that says they're banned. They'll do it because why? They don't want to fucking reformulate all their foods. They don't want to go back to the drawing board and be like, fuck, now what are we going to use? And then they pay their scientists and they do tests again. They try to reformulate the product. No one wants to do that. So they're going to keep on doing shit the old way or the bad way until finally someone complains enough or there's a outrage enough and then they're forced to. Why would they? Why would they? Why would they? Why would they go through all that before they have to, even when they know it's bad? So it's usually like, oh, well, it wasn't illegal. We just kept on using them because, okay, well, I guess now we'll change them. But it might take 20 years. Some of these things and some of these dogmas and some of these doctrines and things that we believe or we thought were fact have been around for like 70 fucking years. And they've been wrong for 70 fucking years. We're just kind of getting around to making a stink about it. But these companies have so much fucking money. It's just a hard battle to fight. And originally, it wasn't that everyone was trying to hate. It wasn't that everyone was trying to kill people. They were just trying to go around what a few scientists were saying and shouting, but everyone had special interests. So it's just a big circus. Just be aware. Be aware of the things that are told to you. Be aware of the things that you've been led to believe, and realize how untrue or how shoddy a foundation that they're on. Okay, so how do we avoid all these bad fats, vegetable fats? They're on everything. Look on the back of go on my Instagram. Oh, you're on Instagram right now. So in my highlights, you look on the back of all the margarines. They're soybean oil, canola oil, hydrogenated oils, partially hydrogenated oils. They're in everything. All these trans fats and vegetable fats, they're fucking in everything. Soybean, if you look at heart disease and you want to look at soybean oil, if you look at a graph of the consumption, do that. Do that. Maybe I'll post a picture on Facebook or something. Look at a graph of the consumption of soybean oil in the American diet in the past 100 years. It goes like this. Like almost fucking straight up. Like an 85-degree just upward spike. Soybean oil to the fucking dome. So much soy. So much soy. I'll tell you one thing. I've never looked at a soybean and gotten hungry. I've never been like, mouth-watering tofu. There's a reason, because my brain is not on an evolutionary level designed to crave soy. You can deny it. You can love the animals. You can love Disney movies. It's just the fucking way it is. We get too moral. We get too distanced from our own mortality and our own animal instincts. We get too separated from who we are as human beings. We live in cities. We live in houses. We don't have to touch things. We have animals as pets. We don't farm. We don't slaughter our own animals. And it's icky and gross. And oh my God, my hands got dirty. Oh, leave that for someone else to do. I don't want to get my hands dirty. Oh no, I just got my hair done, my nails done. I just got these shoes. I don't want to get them dirty, man. I don't want to go outside. It's raining. We're just too materialistic and we're too separated from who we are as creatures. We're not this altruistic species that, oh my God, we're not animals, we're humans. No, we're fucking animals. We're animals that can make iPhones. That's literally what we are. And we eat things. Big shocker. We eat things. Our body's ancient. We're just not designed to fucking chew leaves. We're not. We're not. You can't make any argument. It's just the science shows. The science, the disease, the health declines. It's just when you start, bottom line, when you start separating and you start trying to replace, it's the replacing. Okay? You start replacing something like animal fat in foods, and then you need to find a replacement or multiple replacements to make things the same, to make things cook the same, to make things stable, to make things not rot. And then you have to add things. So there was vegetable oils, and then it was hydrogenated, the trans fats, because you could make those fats into different consistencies. They had to make a fake butter. I showed it on my Instagram last night that, Earth Balance. It's vegan, it's GMO free. It's all soybean oil, canola oil. It's all fucking crap. I don't think it was trans fats, but because I think it was a soybean oil. Look on the back, it's just soy oil. Great, let me spread this soy oil all over my fucking bread or whatever. My heart healthy bread. No, I'd rather put a nice big fucking slab of butter on a steak. Just fats are not bad. Saturated fats are not the enemy. And if anything, I'm proof of that too. I eat a ton of fat. I'm not fat. I have abs. I have muscles. I have a sick pump. I feel amazing. I get fucking erections just fine. I have beard, my skin. Everyone's asking me. You've seen it here before in the comments. What do you do for your skin? Oh man, look at your skin. I eat a lot of fat. It's called health. Fat's great for your skin. A ton of coconut oil. Coconut oil isn't bad for you. Everyone's, coconut oil is so good. We all love coconut oil, don't we? Look on the back. It's saturated fat. Yet we're running away from other saturated fats. When you start looking at individual micronutrients or the individual macros, that's why macro counting is a fucking stupid waste of time. That's why calorically restricted diets on low fat and higher carb, that's why they don't work. That's why if you're struggling, you're doing a low calorie vegan, a low calorie, low fat, a little bit of meat, you're doing mostly carbohydrates. That's why you're not losing weight, because your hormones are fucked. Your body is holding on to calories because it doesn't know how to get rid of them. Your body has lost the ability to tap into fat stores. That's why eating higher fat can get into those fat stores and you can lose weight. So if you're struggling losing weight, you can message me. I will help you, give you additional resources. I can answer your questions. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm just someone who has a fucking brain and cares and just sees the patterns. And I try it myself. I do these things myself. I've tried doing tons of salads and tons of veggies. It's unfulfilling. It's unsatisfying. It's depressing. It's like eating fucking tears. It's like eating sadness. A big fucking salad, it's hard to eat. It's like eating fucking sadness. There's a reason why you want to put dressings all over it. Oh, but wait, those dressings have vegetable oils and canola oil and trans fats. It's better to put just fucking fat in it. Put olive oil. You just put like real fats in there. It's just interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting how we look at and we think we trick ourselves into thinking, why do you think you want to put cheese all over a salad? Why do you think you want to put steak on a fucking salad? Because salad is sadness. Eating greens, you're not a fucking cow. You're not a cow. I've never once looked at a rolling meadow of beautiful wheat and grass and been like, oh, I'm fucking hungry. Look at that tree, bro. You see that tree? God, look at those leaves. I'm fucking hungry. I've never looked at a tree and gotten hungry. I've never looked at a lettuce patch and my mouth has salivated. I have not. Nor have I looked at an antelope and been like, oh my God, and licked my lips, because I don't kill animals myself. But if I did grow up with that, if we weren't separated from the actual act of making our own food and hunting our own food, if we weren't separated and distanced, I would be fine with it. I'm sure of it. If you're raised to hunt and to gut and eat the organs and all that stuff, it's not weird. It's just weird because we grow up in apartments. We grow up away from the country. We grow up away from farms, and we watch Disney movies where the animals talk. The animals talk, and we give names to the animals, and we have animals as pets, and we look at these things as people. We have dogs named Mike. We have, fish named Peter, and we have cats named Barnaby and fucking whatever. So I'm not saying go hunt. I'm not saying be a dick. I'm not saying fucking, go eat your dog or kill your animals and stuff like that. But we're separated, and we watch all these movies with the personification of animals, and we think animals are people. And we're like, oh, stop eating animals. That's mean. That's cruel. It's not. It's called life. It's called the circle of life. It's called survival of the fittest. It's called evolution. We just have this conscience, and we think we're so much better and altruistic, and that by eating an animal, we're fucking terrible. Like, we're terrible at existing. Like, who the fuck are you to say that that's an evil thing? Who the fuck are you to say that I'm evil for surviving, for eating what I'm supposed to eat? Like, you're a dick. You're a dick. And that's why a lot of people, that's why they have that whole funny, back and forth is like this and vegan. It's like, because people that try to control how you think and you consume and call you an asshole or that you hate animals. Just dicks. It's just dicks. Yes, we're soft as fuck as a human race. We're super fucking soft. And our egos are bigger than ever. We think we're saving species. We think we're saving species. Like, oh, don't eat that. We'll save, save this. We're kidding ourselves. Like, we can make that much of a change. Like, we can do that much. But we can. Together, we can. Yeah. You synchronize 7.5 billion people do the same thing. And I'll get on board with that. But good luck. Good luck with all that. Let's answer some questions, take some comments. I see a lot more on Facebook, so I'm going to go over to Facebook first. Actually, what was Electric Elizabeth? I tried vegan cake once. It tasted like sawdust, sadness, and disappointment. That's the thing. That's the difference when people go vegan and associate veganism with health or veganism with, okay, I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to go vegan. I'm not saying don't be a vegan. What I'm saying is that there is this illusion that going to veganism is the answer, is a weight loss method. It's a style of eating. It's a major lifestyle change. It's a major shift, and it can be very dangerous if you're not getting all the nutrients. Very few people, I think, can really do that effectively, and we still don't know the long-term effects, like really, really clinically what that means, as opposed to, and is it that much better than consuming animal saturated fats from like grass-fed sources? So until you have like trial test groups over the course of like 20 or 30 years that have, it's hard. Think about that. You get a bunch of people that have no history or even history or like, a nice dispersal of, genetics and no prior conditions, and you feed them this specific diet and them, this other group, this specific diet for years and years and make sure they don't fall off and they're testing regularly. Can you see how much money that would cost? You can't do that for 5 weeks and really have a good test because a lot of these things might come out in 20 or 30 years. But then we're not going to have the answers for 20 or 30 years. And are you going to have people that are going to be involved in the study? And how much is it going to cost for you to, like, they making the foods themselves? That's a variable. Are you feeding them? That's a huge cost and resource. So there's so much money that it takes to run these tests. You can understand why they don't get done that often. And now you can also understand why the research, quote unquote, or the things that they're basing all this shit on is so faulty because the information wasn't there. You think we don't have information now? Imagine what we had in the 1940s and 50s. We had less accurate methods of determining the shit then. But we're basing the shit we're doing today on these epidemiological studies that were done 60 or 70 fucking years ago that had sporadic correlations that do not translate to fact, and we're using them as fact. And the thing is, all those people that were doctors and in that industry then are dying off. They're dying, fam. They're dying. It's kind of like the game telephone. Legend turns into myth, becomes fact, because everyone that was alive that realized it wasn't really that much of a fact is dead. And now we just believe it's fact because we're told by our parents and our parents' parents and our parents' parents. It's just fucking crazy. But now we have all this ability to spread the knowledge and spread the word and get it out there and have this discussion. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but a lot of arrows sure as hell point to the things that we were demonizing and saying are bad that aren't really bad. A lot of arrows are pointing that way. You cannot deny that. A lot of things are showing that, wow, those decisions that we made to cut down carbs dramatically, or to cut down fats dramatically and to raise carbs and all this plant and vegetable oils, obviously that wasn't the answer because shit is really bad now. I think we can agree that that was not the right direction. And we've stuck to it for fucking half a century, 3/4 of a century. And it's hard to change those things when every industry and medical professional, of course, doctors say that it's not good to consume too much fat. They were taught that. They went to 4 years of fucking school and they have a 30-year career based on that premise because that's what they were told and that's what the marketing and everything was sent to them. All the pamphlets, all the companies, the government, the FDA, everything was saying this. The American Heart Association, everyone was fucking running their mouth. Saturated fats are bad. Saturated fats are bad. Of course they say that. Of course they still say it today. They're 60 years old. They're 70-year-old doctors. They've been saying this stuff for their entire career. They don't know anything else to say. So next time you listen to your doctor about diet advice, you might want to think twice. I'm not saying don't listen to your physician. I got to protect myself on that, but I'm saying you have the ability to research yourself. Don't be such a fucking sheep. Don't be such a fucking sheep. Don't just follow along. Think. You have a brain. You can think for yourself. When you see all the signs and the warning signs and the facts and you realize, holy shit, they've been fucking lying to me my entire life. And then you just ignore and be like, well, everyone else is doing it. It can't be that bad. I mean, oh, yeah, but my doctor said, okay, then you're just part of the fucking problem. I'm getting a warning on Instagram. I have 20 seconds remaining. Is there a limit to live broadcasting? I guess it's probably about an hour. So just so everyone knows, I'm going to continue for a little bit, answer some questions. So those of you that are on Instagram, I've never seen that before. We've also never gone this long before, but it says 9 seconds remaining. So on Instagram, make sure you hop on over to Facebook Live because I'll stay for a couple moments to answer some of these comments. For those that are still rocking, yep, it ended. Okay, so I'll share that. Interesting, right? We broke Instagram. So instead, watching news, we try to learn how our body works. Fat is necessary for homeostasis, agreed, and hormones. The vegan trends are so popular. Stephanie Go on Instagram. The vegan trends are so popular because of the past years and people being sick by eating whatever they want. It's not until people have to have a lifestyle change and try new diets. What's interesting is that when you do tests with vegetarians or vegans, those results are biased because being a vegetarian and being a vegan is such a disciplined way of eating. Like you have to make right choices. When you're a vegan, you follow directions. So a lot of these tests are implemented by doctors or by medical professionals. When you start testing on vegans, for example, or vegetarians, it skews the data because people that are very strict about their diet in that sense are more likely to exercise, are more likely to listen to their doctors, are more likely to abide by rules. So that biases and that skews the experiments. So just because you're on a vegan diet and a vegan diet showed that this drop in, chances are they probably exercise too. They probably walk. They probably had better stress management because they care enough about their health to eat a specific way or try to eat a very disciplined way. They're more regimented in their approach. Maybe they slept better as well. They drank more fluids, more water. They probably didn't drink as much beer. They didn't drink as much fatty. Like, if you're a vegan, you're also not getting a lot of refined sugars and stuff in general. So if you care about your health, what they're finding now is that it's not so much a saturated fat, it's the refined sugars, and that the increase in sugar directly correlates to heart disease and diabetes and all these things. So it's more about the fucking sugar. All right. Stefan Kuhns, doctors have to take extensive organic chemistry class, so that's not right at all. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Doctors have to take limited organic chemistry. In fact, my friend, doctors don't have to take any more organic chemistry normally than people that go through and take organic chemistry in undergrad. So medical school, they might have a little bit more organic chem, but it's not so much organic chem, it's a lot of memorization. It's a little organic chem. I mean, it's really not that extensive. A lot of it's just clinical trials and stuff. And don't forget, it's a business. Education's a business. So they stretch out medical school. They stretch out these fucking 4-year, 5-year. They fluff it up to charge as much as they can for loans. So that's a fucking scam itself. It's a big system, all of it. When I lost my 120 pounds, I cut all fat and carbs out. Always felt confused and angry. Blood sugar dropped all the time. Was not healthy. They've linked to low fat to things like depression and violence even, and low mood and all these things. So there's a lot of issues with low fat. They've seen that shit. Going deep. Yeah, we're going long today. Dr. Swank's diet. Never heard of that. I believe is what most health conscientious multiple sclerosis warriors go by. These guys are really strict with their diet. I suggest you give it a good perusing. I have no idea what you just said. Jennifer Kuleza. Dr. Swank. I don't know what the hell that. Sorry for you podcast listeners. I started reading that and I have no idea what that was mentioning. Let's see. I eat healthy all day, every day. I just want to drink a couple beers in the evening. You spike your insulin some. You might have some allergic reactions or inflammation from the wheat, but that's up to you. If you're getting results and you're happy with that, it's your life. That's fine. Sometimes people get so sick they have to go vegan and gluten-free. Depends on what they're sick with. It depends on what you mean by they have to. That's usually not necessarily true. Have to does not mean that they actually have to. That just might be what's recommended based on who knows, because you didn't give an example there. Stepping on everyone's toes today. Yeah, I'm not really. I'm just giving what's already been published in books and stuff. I work at Whole Foods. I see people all day that have to eat plant-based to stay alive. I'm not sure what that means. You see all people all day that have to eat plant-based to stay alive. What does that mean? What's keeping them, what's making them die? I don't understand. I don't understand. Yeah, this is not anti-vegan. I'm not saying you can't. There's a huge difference, everyone, about survival. Like, can you live on a vegan diet? You can live. But are you adding and eating excessive caloric? Like, are you trying to do all these extra things that aren't necessary for marginal differences in benefit, if any? My point is that they're not tested. This is not tested. They haven't tested all these. Like, it takes a lot. This is not proven. We all assume this is proven. It's not fucking proven. If you're a vegan athlete and you're like, well, look at all this I did. I don't have any of these issues, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but you're also not eating refined carbohydrates. You're not eating a lot of refined foods. You're not getting a lot of the trans fats. You're not getting a lot of these other things too. And you're exercising regularly. You can take the same person that's eating a diet high in grass-fed animal fats, that's lazy as shit, that smokes and sits on their ass all the time, and they're going to be unhealthy and have all these risks and be out of shape and stuff like that, because exercise makes a huge difference. Being active makes a huge difference. A huge difference. So you have to factor in these other things. An athlete is an athlete. If you have two people, one person eats McDonald's and exercises every day hard, but they eat McDonald's regularly, another person eats McDonald's regularly and doesn't do shit, they're going to look different. They're going to look different. The one that exercises regularly is going to be healthier than the one who doesn't. So there's other factors in just the diet alone. But I'll take one or two more comments. There's a lot of comments, not so much questions. Eric Dean, not to compare animals to humans, but creatures are creatures, man. That's why a lot of these tests are done on rats and pigs and guinea pigs, because they mimic, omnivores. But everyone love my dog's coat. It's shiny and soft because we feed him high-fat foods. Yep. Canines should be consuming high fat. I've been getting a hard time for drinking distilled water. What do you say? You should not be. Why are you drinking distilled water? You do not need, you could filter your water. I would not drink distilled water. You're not meant to drink distilled water. I baked a vegan cake and it was bomb. I'm sure it was. I was vegan, never again. Hair loss and all kinds of illnesses. Damn Instagram. Let's see. What's your take on distilled water? Oh, I already saw that question. I would not drink. Do your research. Google it. You're not supposed to drink distilled water for long term. Education is a business. To become a doctor costs around $500K. It's just crazy. I think it's probably even a little bit more now with loans and like interest. Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Let's see. Mike Honcho, 60% veggies, 40% meat. It depends on what you mean by veggies, and 60% in volume, in actual calories. But just keep looking into it. Realize that high fat does not mean sick or ill. It's not bad for you. Animal fat has been demonized for an entire century, and we're just coming out from the groggy, underneath the nutsack that is, the smoke screen that's been poisoning us for our lives. This is just what we've had to deal with. This is what we have to deal with, and it's what we've been exposed to, and it's our struggle. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the aftermath of poor decision making and people that are out of the game already. They're retired, they're dying, they're done. But they made these decisions, and now you do not have to live with other people's mistakes. You can make your own decisions. There are options, and there are other ways of eating and thinking, and a lot more research and evidence has come to show that what you have been told your entire life and your parents have been told their entire lives is in many, many, many ways absolutely fucking scam, fraudulent, and not based on any kind of scientific foundation that we would even look twice at today. We would just throw in the fucking trash. Like that's not even a basic study. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me for 633. Great episodes. Make sure you hit the share button. Make sure you like it, and make sure you check us out on SoundCloud and iTunes. Thanks for joining me live on Instagram while it lasted, and also on Facebook. Remember, all the episodes, YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes for the podcast. Stay tuned. I'll be sending out an email blast when that's online and the podcast is available. And Swolenormous X members, if you're interested in hooking into Swolenormous X, make sure you go to Swolenormousx.com. There's a brand new yoga class every week, brand new workshops every single week, and brand new workouts to go along with your full 90-day dash program. So it's everything you need. It's exceptionally affordable, and it's on special offer. It will not last long. Prices are going up real soon, so make sure you jump on the Swolenormous X train to lock in your special offer today. Make sure you do that. There'll be a lot more information coming from Swolenormous X and all the latest and greatest, especially tomorrow's virtual training is going to be sick. Brand new workouts every week. So super excited and stoked about that. Peace, McGee's fam. Deuce Magoose. Papa Swolio. Out.